Welcome once again to our Wonderful Day in the Lord program, and we are in the book of Proverbs. And as we travel through the book of Proverbs down this Route 66 that we're traveling, we're stopping along the way and looking at important markers that help us live life. As we have seen, the theme of Proverbs is wisdom. The converse of wisdom is foolishness or fools. And the book of Proverbs has just about as much to say about fools and foolishness as it does about wise people and wisdom. And probably that's because often we understand positive things by looking at their opposites, their negatives. And so we see what a wise person is by examining what a fool is. When we think of foolishness or a fool, often we think of somebody who isn't very sharp, who might be mentally deficient or something like that. But that is never the way the Scriptures describes a fool. A fool in the Scriptures is someone who is living in contrary or contrast to the ways of God. And so we find, for example, in 12:15 of Proverbs, the way of the fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel. So the first marker of a fool, according to God, is an individual who thinks his way is superior to God's way. When you pause to think about that for even a moment, you realize how foolish that is. If God is the all-wise God of the universe who can make no mistakes, never wrong, if that is who he is, then to think that our ways, any of our ways, is superior to his ways, if any of our thinking is better than his way of thinking, well, that's the essence of foolishness, isn't it? And so he tells us here that the way of a fool is right in his own eyes. Probably a better known verse is 14:12, when it says this, "There is a way which seems right to a man, but the end is the way of death." The end is the way of death. So as a person who thinks he's right in his own eyes, he does not realize, or he wouldn't go this direction, that the end result is destruction. And this verse goes so far as to say the way of death. It's a way of destruction. And so whenever we go against the wisdom of God, the ways of God, we are in dangerous territory. Probably, again, the most well-known verses in Proverbs is chapter 3, verses 5 to 7, which also address this same subject. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not lean on your own understanding." So turn to his wisdom, turn to him and trust him instead of ourselves. "In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil." And so we have this individual who is in their own eyes, in their own ways, they think everything's just wonderful. They're following their own pathway. They're following their own wisdom. They're following the advice of people around them. But the Lord warns us that unless we're following the ways of him, we're on the path to destruction. So don't be wise in your own eyes. That's the way of the fool. Instead, fear the Lord and turn from evil. Now, if you identify with this at all, and you said, I don't want to be a fool in the eyes of God, I want to be a wise person, what can you do about it? Well, let me suggest, as we turn to chapter 9 and verse 6, that the first thing you can do is repent. Once you recognize your situation, once you recognize a sinful situation in your life, the first thing you need to do then after that is to repent. And so in 9:6 it says, "Forsake your folly and live, and proceed in the way of understanding." So turn away from that. So recognize it's wrong. Recognize you need to turn another direction and get away from that so that you can proceed in the way of understanding. The way of understanding then is described in verses 9 and 10 as a way of wisdom. "Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be wiser still. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase his learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." And so the next step after recognizing that you're living foolishly or thinking foolishly is to repent of that, turn from that. But once again, when we turn from something, we're turning to something. And so we're turning from the way of foolishness, the way that is natural for us, the way that is right in our own eyes, and we're turning to God's way. And that way is the way of wisdom. And we receive instruction from him, and we become wiser still. But remember, verse 10, this is our key verse in all of Proverbs, verse 10, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. True wisdom is founded on our understanding of the magnificence and splendor and glory and all of God. And unless we nail that down, then we're just going to make temporary changes in our lives that will not last, will not be permanent. We need to start with the understanding of who God is and build on that premise in order to be wise people. So let's not walk as fools. Let's walk as the wise. That's how the Lord wants us to live, that we might have a wonderful life in Him.